Hi, and welcome to C. Myers Live. My name is Sally Myers, and I'm a principal at C. Myers Corporation.
And I'm Charlene Leland. I'm a vice president with C. Myers.
And today we're going to talk about how to take talent and turn it into a competitive advantage. It has been topic conversation in just about every discussion we're having with senior leadership teams.
Yeah, it's a critical piece. I just want to take a step back though, and sometimes we think of it as something that happened along with the pandemic. All the oh, we can't find enough people, we can't get the right people. It was here before that. Actually, we
Mm-hmm.
were we were talking about it at least in 2019 and early 2020. So it's not new. It's still a challenge, and as we all also like to say, it can be a tremendous opportunity as well. The first thing is to really think about, step back, big picture. How important is talent to your business model? How much of a huge piece of what you do is dependent on your talent? And getting clarity on that, and getting a good picture of where it fits into the big picture of the business, I think is the perfect place to start, because most places land on the fact that, wow, it is so critical to what we do that it's not having this as a competitive advantage, or not being really effective in this area, and having that be a competitive advantage could hobble us for the future.
Yes, and it's interesting because more and more leadership teams are acknowledging that regardless of the technology that they invest in, they still need appropriate brain power and action to have that technology really do what they set out to have it do, and that thinking. And so when you talk about how important talent is to your business model, well, how do you break it down? There's a lot of different ways to go about this. One way that works is start with the executive leadership team. What are the characteristics, preferences, and behaviors that you need the individuals on that team to have first and foremost? Eventually, you'll get to technical know how, but behaviors, preferences, and characteristics are so important. And then within that, what we see when people start that discussion is they start by building a superhuman.
Yep.
Well, we have to have all of these 50 characteristics that are just absolutely amazing. So if you do that, and you step back and like, we didn't accomplish anything, you did, you got it out of your system. Let's just get it
I
out of
like
our
that.
system. And then now we have to prioritize because we know we don't have access to all the superhumans that exist in the world for our organization. So then looking at it from a team perspective as well, in each person it has a unique contribution. So as you look at it as a team and the different puzzle pieces, can they all fit together to help the organization grow and thrive? And then once you do that and clearly articulate it, then you can work that through the entire organization.
Yeah, and the reason it's so important to like narrow it down to, I'm just going to throw out top five. Maybe it's not
Mhm.
five, but what are the
Mhm.
things you really, really prioritize for this? And then, okay, what are the gaps that we have? And like you were saying, not every single person has to have everything, but do the pieces fit together? But recognizing what the gaps are, and then figuring out how to work on those. That's a way to put teeth into this idea of making talent a competitive advantage for your organization. And then you can do the same thing at the other levels, like just like you were saying, Sally. Define what you need in different roles, and then what gaps do you have, so that you have something pretty specific to work toward.
As you work this through the organization, it's important for you as an executive team to identify how many high impact or high influencers you need to have in the organization. What are the supporting roles? Because you're not going to always have, again, a bunch of high impact, high influencers. And there are supporting roles in the organization. And then there are simply just jobs to be done. And on the jobs to be done, those are probably people who may or may not want a career path in the organization, but it can be a great place to work. And of course, everybody within their role has to deliver it to the expectations identified. another thing that you can do, and again, this is not a linear process, it's a non-linear process, is to step back and work as a team to develop an employer value proposition.
Yeah, I like where you're going with this because, initially we're talking about what does the organization need? What do you need from your people? What characteristics, et cetera, and at different levels, which I think is an important way to start the conversation because, and you probably hear these conversations too, Sally, where there's because of the challenges and just trying to even get enough people and get the right people, that sometimes the conversation focuses on we need to pay people more and they need to have better benefit. It's all the things for the employee, which is important too. It's a two-way street. So we started off with what you need as an organization, and then look at it from the other side as an employer. What is your value proposition to the talent that you want to bring on? Just like you have a value proposition for your customers. Maybe
Yeah.
you're convenient, or you have great technology, or you're friendly, whatever it is. Decide and think about what you want your value proposition to be to the people that you want to hire, and it's different for every organization. There's no one thing. It's not just higher pay or something like that. It's about what you offer as an organization, your culture. What do people want out of their work lives?
Well, it's not only for people that you hire, I don't think. I think it's for people that you have internally that want to grow with your organization. So again, what is the employer value proposition? And you're right, it's not just one thing, it's a combination of things. Keeping in mind that not all people will like your employer value proposition, but that can
Sure.
be used as it's a great filter.
Yeah, it's okay.
When you're as a team articulating your value proposition, it's important to write it down and then take it back to the business model. Another thing that can really help with writing a value proposition is articulating the brutal facts that you're facing, using that as a foundation to discuss, well, what are people going to value going forward? Why would somebody choose to come and work for our organization over the other choices that they have? Same question, and maybe even a little bit more important, is why would somebody continue to choose to work in our organization? Especially if it's somebody that really adds the value that they're set out to add. On the brutal facts, well, what do we mean by brutal facts? And
Well, one brutal fact is that the value proposition you might have had as an employer before might not work today.
mm,
That the times are changing. That's a brutal fact, and I hear a lot of conversations, kind of "Oh, I don't like the way things are going. People are different. The young people are different, and the brutal fact is that when things do change, and they do, you have to adapt just like you do. When a brutal fact for your business model in general might be we have extra competitors that have come into our market. Well, you can't change that. You're going to have to adapt to that, right? And it's the same type of thing. The environment has changed around talent. That's a brutal fact.
yeah, and a specific example is when I talk to clients, I don't know if this is the same for you, Charlene, but it used to be that people in the leadership level would stay 15, 20, 25 years. And that's not happening today. And so when I talk to other clients about what do you deem success at the leadership level, it's not uncommon for me to hear, if I can have somebody at a leadership level who has high positive impact in our organization and they're only here for 5 years, I deem that a success. That's very different than the 15, 20, or 25 years that used to happen. And so I'm saying that, they deem that as a success, which leads to another key component of this is to make sure executive leadership team articulates their measures of success, because as the business models are changing, the talent is changing, then so do the measures of success. Because if you don't get together as a group and redefine success, you might feel like failures
Mhm.
in this world where you haven't redefined success.
Well, and the definition of success then helps you respond and take action. So you've got the brutal fact, and once it's faced, it's success if our leaders stay 5 years. Then that can lead to actions like onboarding and development for this person needs to go faster.
Hmm.
We need to have them productive and bringing more to the organization faster. That's a tangible outcome from understanding the brutal facts and then putting teeth into that idea of having talent be a competitive advantage.
Yes. And I'll add to that, it also, when you're growing internal talent, as they're growing, if you're going to put them in a leadership position, it can also inform the training that's going to need to occur so that when they get into that position, they're ready to hit the ground running. So it can help with that. And it can also help you assess the people that you decide to grow from within, and then the people that you are contemplating bringing on your team. Because then you'll ask that question, well, when do we think they're really going to have that high impact? And again, we're using 5 years and we're using this as an example. That's not the only measure of success, but the idea of articulating what are your measures of success. The other thing that we find others value is at the leadership level is to individually identify and articulate and share biases that you might have
Mm,
or a person might
yes.
have. Once you share them, find an accountability partner to help you check your biases. And
Yeah, this is another one of those brutal fact things where it's not fun to identify your own biases. But having done that, especially amongst the team, and then, like Sally said, making sure that someone's checking you on those things can really expand your thinking. I'll give an example of a bias that we hear a lot in conversations, and that is something along the lines of, well, young people have a bad work ethic. They
mm-hmm,
don't work as hard as we used to. That's definitely a bias. Well, not every young person falls into that category.
mm-hmm.
There's also the point of, what's a bad work ethic, and maybe the definition has changed over time. But yeah, imagine if you even pass over one or two people and
Yeah.
miss out on great talent because of that bias. What a waste. And so,
Well,
uh,
and I know, I'm sure you have another one, but I just have to interject. What is a bad work ethic? I think that's such a great conversation piece, because it's not about punching the clock anymore. It's not about hours worked. It's more about what's the outcome produced or the impact that somebody is having. And so getting the mind around that, but if it's hours worked for your organization, then you need to say that out loud to each other.
yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
go ahead,
Yeah,
Charlene.
absolutely. Oh yeah, I was just going to give on the other side of it. What about the notion that, oh, somebody that's been here 20, 25 years, they really don't have any original thinking. They're probably going to be a roadblock to anything that we want to
Mm-hmm,
change.
mm-hmm.
Or someone who's been somewhere else for that amount of time and is maybe looking to onboard. Again, individuals. We have to just recognize we have these biases. We all have the thoughts and along those lines that probably we would all benefit from identifying them, so we can, because if you're unaware of them, you can't avoid them.
That is true. And then in asking for help. If you know this is how you think, then ask for help. Help me think differently. Help me open my perspective. And also, when you're going through this, it's really important for you to work on, this is your desired state. This is where you think your organization needs to go to put teeth behind having talent become a competitive advantage. And so making sure that you're in your desired state, and then of course stepping back, and what are your gaps? Every company has gaps. So what are the gaps that you have? What are the biggest gaps? Which ones do you want to tackle first? And make it a plan to get there, just like you have a technology plan or a strategic plan. This isn't going to happen unless you're intentional about it. And then of course, it's not a one and done.
Yeah, it evolves just like everything else, just like technology. That's a great parallel to draw there. You set your technology plan, but you always look at it to see what's changing every year, and you make the adjustments that you need to make.
And there's constant assessment. And so for when you develop your plan to turn talent into a competitive advantage, having consistent assessment. How are you progressing? Are you taking the actions you said you were going to take? And if you are they working? Because if you're taking these actions and they're not having the desired outcome,
Right.
then recalculate your route. You know, the goal is still the same. You still want to arrive at having a competitive advantage, but then come in through different windows, different doors, try things. So make sure you're constantly assessing, and then doing that in a very productive environment. You got to have the environment for open and honest conversations in order for this to work.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for spending a little bit of time with us today, as we hopefully we gave you some ideas for how to put teeth into the idea of making talent a competitive advantage for you.
Yes, and I want to add that all we're doing here is scratching the surface. There's an infinite number of ways that this can be done. So again, thank you for your time.